But I digress. Tiffany, welcome to Zero to Growth. So happy to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So you are a TC. Tell me a little bit about that because it's definitely been a while since we connected.
Yeah, I started TCing when Top Tier was born. Basically, on day one, I was like, this is me. And I just jumped on board, got the program, and just started learning with Molly and Ashley and the Top Tier gang. It's been awesome. I've met all the best people in that community. So let me just take a step back. When we first met, we just joined Sub 2, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And we both started with the wholesale gig, right? That's how you start. You join Sub 2 and you start wholesaling, right?
Hmm.
At least for my path, it was with cold calling, talking to sellers, and also talking to agents. And I was doing that for a few months, and then I realized this is not my jam, right? Talking to them, it's not my thing. And I didn't realize that it's not going to be everybody's thing. I thought you're supposed to just persevere and just do it, even though you don't like it, because everyone starts in that position and then we all work our way up. I don't know what working your way up leads to, but I was just starting off, you know, in the bottom. Then when Top Tier was introduced, it just sounded too good to be true because at that time I was also looking at the avatars that Pace introduced, and then transaction coordinator was on the list, but I didn't really know what that was. But when they announced the program and dove more into it, I realized that was where I wanted to lean towards. Yeah, that journey has been very, I would say, empowering because I like to understand the details. Right. And I always just felt so, I think that's why I didn't really like just getting started wholesaling and talking to sellers because I didn't know what I was talking about. I would watch the trainings and hear Pace talk to the sellers, and I'd literally just write down everything he said verbatim, not really understanding what he meant behind that. And it felt fake. So just being a TC, learning the ins and outs of a transaction was empowering. And I guess I got addicted to that feeling and I like to know everything. And I realized a lot of the other people in the community were very similar.
I like that. I feel like it's very tough for people to come out and say wholesaling is not for everybody. At least I did not hear that when we were starting out. It was just it's a numbers game. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I came across someone the other day and he shared the same sentiments and he was like, "Yeah, I don't think getting into wholesaling is the best idea unless you have previous sales skills."
Hmm.
And I definitely think coming into the wholesaling game without any of that, it is a numbers game because you just have to keep going until you figure out what you're doing. And then, like you said, if you don't know what you're doing, maybe you're having some of that imposter syndrome. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a lot harder for you to not convince, but really show someone that you're able to handle whatever situation that they're in.
Yeah. I don't want it to sound like I did not enjoy wholesaling at all because I did. I feel like I did learn a lot of valuable skills, like going to the daily dials and learning a lot of the sales techniques and just practicing that. I do feel like I was able to improve and work on those skills. So I am very grateful to that. And also I think TCing, just being, again, going back to the empowerment and the knowledge you gain, I feel like that would have helped my skills. And so if I were to go back into the wholesaling game, I feel like I could do better. I'm not going to because I just don't want to. But if I were to, I feel a lot more confident talking to sellers. I talk to them as a TC all the time now, a different
Mhm.
position. And granted, they're already locked up by the time I'm talking to them usually. But just getting that experience communicating with them is something that I've been able to work and do better at now. Before you talk to them, my voice shook and I was like, oh, am I saying the right thing? Oh gosh, I don't want to sound stupid in front of them. And then I realized I actually have to talk down because a lot of the terms I throw out there, I forget they're not everyday terms that when you're talking to a seller that they would understand. like throwing out the deed in lieu, huh? Like,
Right.
we need to draft your security instruments. My what? Stuff like that. And then you start talking about like logistical, like what to do with your insurance and stuff, post close, like all these things. You just have to remember that they're not from this world. You have to actually break things down for them. Yeah. And then that's something when I was wholesaling, I just wrote those words that Pace said. And so I'm trying to sound smart so they don't think I don't know what I'm talking about.
Hmm. You just have this breadth of knowledge, and now you finally have someone to share it with, and it's just coming out, and they're just not landing. I remember one of the times I went door knocking, a woman was explaining her scenario, and she had a HELOC, but she didn't say it that way. She had a home equity line of credit. And I was like, "Oh yeah, a HELOC." And she looked at me like I was from another planet. And I was like, "Well, what did I do?" But
Yeah.
getting into the TC work, was there a time when you still didn't really have a complete grasp on what you're doing while you're trying to navigate the process with a seller?
Oh yeah, I still have times when I don't know what I'm doing. So I think as in this industry, you'll never know everything, and you're always learning something new. A lot of the times we end up relying on the title company or closing attorney in a particular state to learn more about the rules and regulations, because it's almost not impossible, but it's really hard to understand fully all the intricacies of each state, each closing attorney, title company. There's so many different, like in the laws, the usuries. I haven't worked in all 50 states. If you were to send me to like Rhode Island for a file, I feel confident I can take it on because I know that I don't know everything, but I could lean on a title company and their expertise to get through the file. So just knowing what questions to ask is really important. And I also I have the community, and so I'm part of a team with two other awesome TCs. And what I like about my team is that we can just all lean on each other if we have questions and ask each other. And just being able to lean on the community is, and not just them, like the whole top tier. Ashley Mason is always there. Shelly, we have like this backbone of knowledge of people that we can always have access to.
What do you think was your first big win in the TC world?
I guess my first big win would have been my first file. I remember my first file was um, a marathon file because everything that could have went wrong just went wrong. One of the sellers died. Um, we changed title companies because of disagreements or someone not trusting that company, and then had contract, just like a million addendums having to get drafted for whatever reason, and disagreements, and I don't know, just a nightmare. And I didn't even realize it wasn't a normal thing because that was my first transaction. So it was afterwards that I realized, like, oh, this isn't normal. And then I had my next file, another sub two that was smooth as butter. And it just closed in 3 weeks and nothing bad happened. Then I realized, oh, okay. So that first one was, ugh. Yeah, but it's like when those things happen, I always had so in Top Tier TC, we have a weekly Q&A. And so I was actually rewatching these old Zooms because everything's recorded. And I just saw myself constantly popping up asking questions. And I realized, okay, so then I was known as the person who just kept asking so many questions. And it helped me to get through the transaction because, like we were talking about earlier with being a mortgage broker, you learn as you go, you learn by doing. And throughout that transaction, the nightmare transaction, it was really tough. There were so many bumps, but at the same time, I learned so much through all of that and all those obstacles. And I would consider that the biggest triumph.
It sounds very messy. And you're just like, yeah, this is a normal Tuesday. Like seller dying, that's got to be rough.
That was, yeah.
I don't know how tough it would be to transfer the deal to another title company. How does that work?
So basically, the biggest thing is just transferring the EMD. So we just need to get the right forms signed and make sure that the title company transfers the EMD over to the next one. And then once
Mhm.
that happens, cancel file, we're good.
Okay,
So it's
very
actually not that hard as long as you just have to wait for the funds to transfer
mhm.
and be able to confirm that it has happened. And
Before
then
you close the file.
before we can technically open a new file with that new title company, right?
Mhm. Interesting. I'm sure it would be difficult for someone on the outside to go about that process smoothly, but it sounds like you've done it numerous times.
I didn't know it was a thing. Then I realized it's not like super, super common, but
Mhm.
it's more common than you would think.
That's something I didn't know, and doing that off the cuff and just having to pivot that quickly, I'm
Mhm.
sure you guys have saved a ton of people time.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that's really hard to explain. I remember when I first started off as a TC, right? The question that everyone asks you is, what does a TC do? Like, why should I hire a TC? And then sometimes it's hard to explain, like, oh, we save you money by checking the settlement statement to make sure you're not overpaying. And then they're like, I can just look at the settlement statement too. It's not that hard. But like when we start at, oh, I talk to all the parties to make sure everyone's up to date with the status of the transaction. That doesn't sound that hard too, right? But then like when you add up all these little things that we do, it does save a lot of not only time and headache, but just there's a lot more reassurance. And everything that we do, the wholesaler or my client, they can easily do it themselves. But then the question is like, do you really want to? Is that really the best use of your time? Do you really want to be worrying about updating the title company about the close date and the status of these dogs? And you still have to dig out your entity docs to send to them. But all these little things that the title company needs from you, it's just every little bit of energy of your brain should be doing your highest and best use task, right? Not worrying about all these little things, which you can easily outsource to someone else whose profession is to take care of these problems and just make things easier for you so you can go and close more deals. Yeah, we save wholesalers time and energy, keep things organized, and keep communications running smoothly for them.
I think that's huge, especially keeping the eye on your most important task. It's going to be hard to juggle a transaction, especially if you're wholesaling, while you're trying to deal with multiple sellers, you're comping multiple properties, you're doing all the things because you might be the solopreneur in your business, especially if you're just getting started,
Mm,
and having to put that attention from where you're supposed to be to now over here is just
yeah.
going to mess a lot of things up, and things are just going to start slipping through the cracks.
Yeah, actually, I do encourage a lot of wholesalers, especially the ones who are like, I can do that. If you can do that, I would actually encourage you to TC your own deal so that you learn all the parts that are necessary to get a transaction done. Just like
Mhm.
me learning on the job as a wholesaler, you should understand how to TC your deal. You should be able to TC your own deal, even if you don't end up in the long run TCing all of your deals. You still want to have that skill set and know the basics of the transaction process. So I do encourage people to TC their own deals often, especially if maybe you're working on your first one or you only have a few deals going and you have that capability. In the beginning, I would say go for it.
Yeah.
Then later, just as you actually want to scale, hand that task off to someone else, delegate, find a TC, and then actually scale your business.
Learning to understand even the simplest aspects. You're trying to hire yourself out essentially, but understanding why you're delegating those tasks and what goes into the process, I think gives you a better understanding of why you should do it in the first place. So I think that's really good.
Mhm.
What's one mistake that you've made early on that's changed the way you might take an approach to some of your TC deals?
A mistake I made early on. I think something that I didn't realize is that adding yourself as an additional insured on the insurance policy is not adequate. And so that anyone who buys a property should have active new insurance before closing. And for multiple reasons, but mainly because a lot of the times the seller, the insurance policy that they currently have when you buy it, most likely is not the right kind of insurance. Most investors who buy it are like fix and flippers who need a certain type of insurance
Hmm.
or landlord, right? And the seller usually has owner's insurance. So it's just like the wrong type, first of all. And then because they are not the primary beneficiary, then if a claim were to come about, they needed to file a claim, then the insurance company can easily reject their claim, right? Or it can get sent to the wrong person. It gets
Hmm.
sent to the seller, the check, and not them. So there's just all these things that can go wrong if you don't have a new insurance policy at closing, right?
I feel like that's big.
A lot of people overlook that. And because I was working for the title company that just helps the buyer add their name as an additional insured to the insurance, but that kind of gave them a false sense of security. And so he didn't get new insurance, which is something I still need to work to get him to do. But not everyone is convinced. They think, oh, it's fine, just temporarily have it as an additional insured. But for the best practice, new insurance. I think that's really important.
So with that, who would you say is one of the most misunderstood things about TC work? That someone who's not a TC maybe won't completely understand, but it seems second nature to you guys. That insurance thing, I think, is something a lot of people might miss. But for you guys, you are already trained to check for those sorts of things. And it's maybe the little nuances that a lot of people may not see, but that you guys are able to catch on the back end.
Hmm. This isn't something necessarily that we do, rather it's something that we don't do. I think that's really important is a lot of people rely on their TCs to help draft contracts or for legal advice.
Mm.
And the thing is, your TC, something that we always have to remind our clients, we're not attorneys. We don't have a law degree. We're not a licensed broker. Actually, I did get my real estate license, but that's another story. But the thing is, I'm not your acting broker. We're not CPAs. We can't give you tax advice.
Hmm.
All people, I think, over rely on their TC for a lot of things, like drafting contracts. Technically, the ones that are supposed to draft your contract for you are either you, an attorney, some title companies can help do that, but usually they have an in-house attorney that they have draft the contracts, or your real estate agent, right? So certain parties are the ones who should be drafting contracts, not your TC. And it's always a blurred line because a lot of us were in sub two and we have access to the contracts and they know the TC knows how to fill out the contracts, right? But then when it comes down to it, for me, if I fill out the contracts for you as just your hired TC, that puts a lot of liability on me. And if anything were to come up in the future, because this is a legal document,
Hmm.
someone comes in, they sue you, they say, who wrote this? Who drafted this contract? Why does it say this? They can point at their TC and be like, they did. Under what authority? From their TC? Like it's
Right.
not something that can hold up in a legal battle. Usually, if you ask a lot of TCs, they're going to say, no, we don't draft your contract for you. Unless there's exceptions, right? If we were JV partners and I'm a partner in this transaction, I have no problem drafting that contract because it's
Hmm.
like my contract. Or if I'm actually a W-2, like I'm getting paid through your payroll, I'm your employee, then I can draft your contract because I'm part of your company. So those are situations where I would be able to draft the contract for you. But yeah, that's just one of the main examples of how people over rely on their TC to do things.
Hmm.
So we always have to remember that there's different hats we can wear in a transaction. Jade always talks about taking off your TC hat and putting on your investor hat when you talk to someone and making it very clear. Like, now I'm talking to you as your TC. I've seen this and this, but let me take that off now. As an investor, I would suggest that you do this and this. As an investor who's been in sub two for however many years, this is my experience. And then you can go on for that. But yeah, we're not CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents. We got to keep that very clear. So,
That's something you might have to repeat on the daily almost. I've
yeah.
definitely come across wholesalers who assume that a TC will handle, oh, this seller's ready to move forward. Call a TC and let them put it under contract. No, that's your job.
My ideal client is one that comes to me with the executed contract ready to go so that I can get title opened and just get that process started.
Hmm.
Not to say that happens all the time. Plenty of people come to me who don't know how to fill out the contract. A lot of times that's actually the case. They don't mind going to get it filled out, just don't know how to. Molly made a contract walkthrough where she teaches people very clearly how to fill it out. If that's still not enough, I oftentimes walk through the contract with people, help them get it filled out without actually doing it myself. Just tell them this should go here, this should go here. Did you guys talk about who pays these costs? Okay, perfect. Just fill it out here. But you can guide someone through it without actually writing it in there. It seems like a small nuanced thing, but when you do TC work, you realize a lot of things have to be documented. That's why we love emailing, because timestamps. And just to summarize, you said this and this, correct? Can you please respond confirming we get everything in writing? Because people say one thing on the phone and then you don't realize that they are saying on the phone isn't actually what they mean, or things like that happen all the time. So if you have something in writing, that's the best.
Makes it a whole lot less easy, per se, for someone to go back and say, I didn't say that. It's here. It's in your email.
Yeah.
Clears
Yeah.
up a lot of misunderstandings very quickly.
Yeah. Screenshots of these things go a long way.
You're also an agent. How does that tie into your TC work?
So I got my license actually before I joined Sub 2 uh,
Hmm.
in California. And I didn't get that with the intention of acting as a actual agent.
Right.
I just got that because it was a family business thing. My mom is actually a real estate agent. And back then, she needed someone to help her open doors, to let people into places and help her with open houses and stuff. And I guess you needed a license to do that. And so I was like, I guess I'll go for my license. I actually failed the first test, but then I got it the second time. But I think it expired because I never really joined a brokerage, just a flop, a waste. And just like Pace says, you really just learn how, like, a lot of the basic stuff and how not to get sued. Either way, I didn't learn that much. I feel like it's the same for your mortgage broker license, right? Like, you learn, but you actually don't learn much until you actually do. So I didn't do the do. So I don't even consider myself an agent.
You learn a lot of how to keep yourself out of hot water, and then the rest is up to you.
Yeah. How not to go to jail.
So, have you been around real estate your whole life then? What's your long term goal in real estate?
So right now in real estate, I'm actually, like, aside from TCing, I'm in the business buying game. So I'm looking for businesses to acquire. I'm currently in the printing business. So I'm looking for print shops,
Hmm.
large format, signs, yeah, LED companies, stuff like that, like big spectacle companies. So right now, I actually have an accepted LOI for this one sign company in Virginia. So that's something I'm working on. So yeah, I've been focusing more on the business buying side rather than just going for real estate.
Hmm.
Actually, I'm also interested in like home services. I think that was how it would tie back into real estate is
Hmm.
trying to get those types of companies. But right now, the active LOI is on a signed company.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a small company, but the idea is to get a few of them and just roll it up.
so how did you know that you wanted to start buying businesses?
What's it called? Zero down.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when Pace started talking about it, that's when I first got. That's not what. I take that back. That's not when I first got introduced. I was following Cody Sanchez first before that, and then Zero Down came out, and then like Cara Allen, the deal maker proteges. So I started getting introduced to all these different things and all these communities that talk about business buying. And then it made sense to me, like looking at the numbers and how if you buy a business, like if you buy a house, a cash flowing asset, right? The average house can make $200 or $300 cash flow a month. Right? Sure, we're not talking about like the appreciation of the property, which of course can add up over time. But if you look at a business, you buy one cash flowing business, you can easily make $100,000 a month with the right type of business. And so the scalability of that, it just it was crazy. And so like the potential behind buying businesses and also just looking at the numbers of baby boomers who are retiring, just like seeing all these potential businesses just going out of business with no one there to take the reins and just watching them die, like people the hard work and sweat of their business for 40 years, then just okay, I'm tired, I need to retire. Son, do you want this? No. I guess time to close shop and just let my hard work fall to the ground. And just seeing all that potential just dying just
Hmm.
didn't sit well with me. Yeah, that's something I want to just acquire more of.
Very interesting. When it comes to buying businesses, you did say it sounds or it's similar to how rents are generated through properties. Do you see any other similarities
With real estate and buying real estate
buying
and
businesses?
buying businesses, the process is very similar in terms of there's the LOI aspect of it. You don't always need an LOI when you buy a house, but
Hmm.
it's a similar concept with putting in your deposit, your EMD. A lot of people you still need to get a loan. And then in terms of negotiating, you can use a lot of the same creative financing techniques, right? Like sub to lots of seller finance in business buying.
Hmm.
And so there's so many different ways to structure creatively like that. It's very similar, it's just a different asset.
So when you're going in to buy these, are you keeping the owner on for any amount of time?
Okay, so for this specific sign company, the owner won awards for his design. And so a big part of the company is the value in his name and people knowing him and coming to us for business because of him. So we
Mhm.
keeping him on for 15% of the business, and he's going to stay on as a equity partner, owner, slash consultant. So he's not going to actually be part of the day to day because that's why he wanted to sell it, because he wanted to not be in the day to day. But because we're keeping him as a consultant, he can come in every now and then and just advise us, and his name can still be a part of the company. So that's one example of the owner staying on. And then this other company, the seller is not an equity partner, but he's also like a regional manager. And so he's also consulting. Most owners, if you look online and like Biz Buy Sell, a lot of them say like they're willing to stay on for 3 months, 90 days, sometimes up to 6 months of just training and just being able to stay on and answer questions and help you with the transition to the new business. Yeah, most of them don't want to just sell and leave. Although I will say in this last business, the seller, he promised that he'd be on for 3 months to help with the transition. And then after 2 weeks, he jumps on a plane and goes on vacation with his wife. It really just depends on that seller. But yeah,
Did
he
you
just
have to track that guy down? Like,
he
how
came
did
back
that pan out?
eventually.
Okay.
He didn't like fall off the face of the earth, but he wasn't there in person to help with certain transition stuff.
Mhm.
But we didn't need him. Figured it out.
So do you have a team behind you when you're doing this, or how does that work?
I actually work with my family. Mostly my dad is the one who helps. He's like the big visionary of the company. So our goal is to do a roll up. Right now, there's the large format print company, and then we're getting this sign company because it's like a good bolt-on business
Mhm.
where they have a network of installers across the country, and that's something that our large format company, our business is lacking is installers. We're trying to expand into the LED space. We have product, but like no one to install. Hence, this company that has a network of installers that we can tap into. So it kind of all complements each other from that standpoint. And that's something that his vision is to help expand in that direction. And then he was able to find this company selling,
Mhm.
and that's kind of part of bigger vision.
But the printing company, is that the one you plan on acquiring on your own?
The
Or are
printing,
those
well, the printing, so the sign company, there's a large sign company, and then there's the large format print.
the format print is the one I was referring to.
No, that's the one that we already own.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, and then the LOI is on the sign company. It's very confusing when I keep saying it like that. The sign company is the one in Virginia that we have our LOI on, and we're
Mhm.
actually just applying for SBA financing right now for this one.
Getting into systems and processes a little bit, are there any that you think that are going to be very pertinent for you running these businesses, or maybe that you're already using in your TC setup?
I think something that is going to be really important for this new business is implementing marketing. One very fast value add that they potentially have is the fact that they don't do any marketing right now.
Mhm.
So just implementing any marketing should immediately boost revenue. Right now, in the business we already own, we utilize Go High Level. So we do have a marketing campaign going out, which can easily be brought over to the new company using similar mechanisms and Go High Level. For anyone who doesn't know, it's basically a CRM that has all these built-in features of automations, auto text, and you can send out voicemails and all that stuff. So I think that'll be something that's really important for just getting that business going.
Yeah, I guess you can apply Go High Level to just about anything. And they have so many different variations of it out now, where every CRM that you can get is almost based off some format of somebody playing with Go High Level and just building it out to that one specific purpose.
Yeah. I've played with some other CRMs, but I feel like just Go High Level is just easy to
Hmm.
use. Some people all disagree with me. It's not easy to use. And there's definitely flaws in it. And it's definitely getting hard to just rely on texting, right? Cold text and cold calling is hard, right? There's a lot of new rules and regulations that are making it hard, right?
Hmm.
And so that's not necessarily what I am leaning to use it for primarily. So there are definitely pitfalls with Go High Level, but it's actually very useful for keeping things organized and keeping track of things. And when you work as a team and being able to go through the texts and see all the past communication with someone and look things up like that, it's very useful. And the automations, and so you don't have to remember to send out emails and stuff like that. Stuff like that seems simple, but they're effective.
Easy fix. Would you say that's one of the more common bottlenecks in the business?
One of the biggest issues in the TC world, I think, is that we talk about it marketing. I talk to a lot of new TCs
Hmm.
and even experienced TCs, right? That's one of the hardest things to do and also stay consistent with is marketing yourself because we hate. So I say we because in general, a lot of TCs lean towards the introverted side, right? They're more integrator. The reason why we're TCs is because we don't like talking to sellers and we don't like cold calling and oh, it makes us cringe. So when I say we, I'm tapping into that persona of people who, in general,
Hmm.
choose the TC route. So yeah, we don't like talking about ourselves. We don't like boasting ourselves and we don't like putting ourselves out there, especially marketing ourselves and going to in-person meetups is like death. We're like, oh, we have to show up. Oh, we have to go in person. I'm tired. So it takes an extra push for the specific group of people. I'm not saying that we don't do it. We go to lots of meetups, but it always takes a fire underneath my butt to get me to go there. And they're usually late too.
Hmm.
And like the sun is down. Why am I going outside? Like this doesn't make sense. And then in terms of just posting on social media, it's not people's favorite thing to do. If you survey like 9 out of 10 TCs, they're like, oh, I need to do better with that. We know we should do it, but we still don't do it enough.
Is there a marketing strategy that you're maybe working on that you've had some issues overcoming the mindset of kind of just do it and just get it over with?
I was actually talking to my team about this today. We had a conversation about marketing, and then noticed that the higher percentage of my clients, like most of them that I work with, I've met them in person. So I say, when I talk to a TC, especially a new TC, we always harp on, oh, go on Facebook, add value, go on those joint Zooms with the sub 2 community and put your connect with people and put yourself out there and do Zoom meetings, get people on your Calendly, stuff like that. From the actual paying clients that I have, I realized you have to go to an in-person meetup, meet this person in person, and then they're a lot more likely to become my client moving forward. Something about actually seeing them eye to eye, that person to person connection. We can become like the best of buddies on Zoom, but somehow when I just meet someone in person, bam, I close. It's not 100%, but going by my actual clients I have.
Hmm. So would you say that you do more deals from the people you met in California, or have you done more nationwide?
I would say more people from Florida.
Florida,
Yeah, I
interesting.
live in Florida.
Oh, you were talking about California, so I thought you were living.
I lived in California my whole life. I just moved here about 2 years ago. And so I moved here around when I joined Sub 2.
Hmm.
So the majority of the Sub 2 people I know are here in Florida. Although I like finally made it to a California meetup recently when I went back for Christmas. And that was like the first meetup in California that I've been to.
Was that a sub 2 meetup?
It was Uncle Lonza's meetup down in the
Okay.
South Bay.
Is it more nerve-wracking to go to a sub 2 meetup where you're all part of the same group, even if you haven't met, than going out to your standard real estate investor meetup?
No, I actually don't go to as many standard real estate meetups. In fact, I feel like I'd be a little more nervous going to that just because, like, in a sub 2 meetup, even if it's my first time going there, I feel like I know the people, or at least one or two people, because I've seen them on a Zoom or something. So there's some familiarity with the people there.
Mhm.
And also, we all have that common backbone of sub 2, and we can talk about pace or whatever. A standard real estate meetup, I feel like people are a lot more poised and they're dressed up and they're trying to be a professional. Sub 2 people are rolling in with their flannel and their beanies. And then everyone else, the traditional ones, got their suits on. They just came from a cocktail party. And it doesn't feel like me. And when you talk more traditional real estate, it's just a different vibe. I prefer the sub 2 meetups or just creative meetups
Mhm.
like Gator, because that's what we've been studying, right? That's what I've been in that Zoom vault marinating so I can talk about all that stuff with like-minded people. Although when you are talking to like-minded people, then there's no room to find a new client who's never heard of creative. And the traditional ones, you can teach people about creative. There's
Do you
that.
think you would step out of your comfort zone to go and try to teach some people about creative?
I should, huh? I don't proactively look for those meetups. I think I've gotten stuck in this loop of I know which meetups happen here, and they're usually the sub 2 meetups, and then I just go to those.
Mhm.
But if I just keep going to the same ones, I'm not meeting as many new people and putting myself in those more uncomfortable situations. So that's a good point that you bring up. I should do that.
Yeah, I think I might give you a chance to get out there and show your stuff, teach somebody something new. And coming from the standpoint of you've done a lot of these transactions, there'll be a lot of tips that are like second nature for you that you might just be able to teach them that someone else without your experience might skip over.
I definitely talk to agents on behalf of sellers and help explain. Like, even it's funny because wholesalers get someone under contract, and I think that they know what they're getting themselves into. Then I
Hmm.
realize when I talk to the agent that they don't even know what's happening really, or they don't have a full understanding that the mortgage is not getting paid off for sub 2, something like that. And so then I have to re-explain things. So I feel like this would be a similar situation at these meetups.
If you
Um,
had to start over from scratch, what's the first three things that you would do?
the first three things that I would do, I would start off by building my persona online, like my YouTube channel, for instance, right? Like was making videos. I don't have that many, but the idea was to make videos to attract clientele, short videos with a popular topics, frequently asked questions that a lot of people ask, and a lot of people are giving different answers to. So giving short, sweet videos. I stopped doing that, or I wasn't consistent with that, and that's something that I wish I was more consistent with. So that's one. And then second, I think would be having boundaries, especially in the beginning. As a TC, there's a strong desire to just give everything. Um, my time is not valuable. I'm grateful I got this file and I just want to give you all of my time. And there's no boundaries. I will do anything for you, basically, right?
Hmm.
And so I feel like I wish like started sooner, like just having that boundary of, okay, well, I told you earlier, right? We're not attorneys, we're not this, we don't draft contracts. Even when I jump on a one-on-one with a person, like I can just go on and they ask me a question, I'll talk for an hour and explain them for to them for an hour. And if they have any follow-up questions, yeah, another hour, right? But I learned that I need to be more firm, set these 15-minute calls, right? Answer what I can. And then if it goes longer, charge for a consult. I realize my time is valuable and I can't just give it all away as charity, unfortunately. Yeah, that's another thing. And yeah, third, gosh, can we just do two?
Sure.
Two is good.
I think those are some pretty great things to get you started if you were to go back in time and start from day one.
Yeah.
Are there any books or podcasts that you listen to help develop your mindset and your skill set?
So I'm not a huge reader, but I've been listening to audiobooks. And this last that I'm listening to, I just finished it. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. And I don't know, it's just very philosophical. Like, I'm not a philosophical person, but it really got to me. Who wrote it? It was by Ryan Holiday. It's a good book. The
Uh,
Obstacle is the Way.
I think when it comes to philosophy, you might not listen to all of it, but it's that one thing that makes you stop and go, huh, wait a minute, that kind of makes sense.
It's easy to understand, so even a basic mind like me can understand these simple concepts. A lot of it just about how if you hit an obstacle, it's like, how do you view that obstacle? Are you going to let it drag you down, or are you going to use it as an opportunity to get stronger?
Perspective.
Yeah. And the next one I'm listening to is The Ride of a Lifetime. It's about the founder of Disney and
Very
his
cool.
story and lessons he's learned. I just started with that one. Yeah, every time I jump in the car, I just turn on my audiobook and try to learn something. I used to just turn on music
Hmm.
and just sing in the car,
Hmm.
which I still enjoy. But I figure we're in this time where we're trying to better ourselves and learn. So thought I'd try to contribute with some audiobooks.
Constantly growing, growing
Yeah,
and evolving.
exactly what you said.
Tiffany, this has been an awesome conversation. One thing that I personally took away from it is how valuable it is to have a TC and have them be able to save you from some of the back and forth time that you could be spending on your primary duty instead of over in this lane. Where can people go to find out more about what you're working on and maybe get some transactions done with you?
My TC team, we're the TC squad. So if you just look up the tcsquad.com, you'll find us. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, Tiffany Chau 1, or people find me on Facebook. If you're in sub 2, it should be pretty easy to find me.
I'll definitely make sure that we get the links down in the show notes so everybody can check those out. But I'm so grateful that you decided to hop on tonight, and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming
I will
on.
tune in. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Zero to Growth, episode 6. If you would love to connect with Tiffany, learn more about business buying, getting some transactions done, feel free to reach out to her. The links are down in the show notes. And if there is someone you want to see on this show, click my scheduling link. Would love to have a chat. Till next time, peace.